Welcome to the Four Check Cast. We are the Four Checks. I'm just going to go and let everyone introduce themselves. Just a fair warning before we begin, though. This is the Week 0 podcast. That means tech issues aplenty. This is our beta test. If you guys notice any issues, mics cutting out, frame rate issues, anything like that, please do me a favor and sound that off in chat because that will help me identify it and fix it. And with that, I'm going to have my fellow co-hosts introduce themselves. Let's start with someone who probably needs no introduction. Kevin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm number one. I'm Kevin Broberg.
What are you number one in? Some of us people don't play a ton of competitive.
Yes.
This is going to be the persona the whole time.
Good.
Yeah, so world champion Kevin Broberg. Tim Keefe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tim Keefe. Satonus on YouTube if you've seen any of those videos. I've been around a long time, just like Kevin and a number of other people. I've won a couple worlds way back when. Not too way back when, but kind of way back when at this point. I've taken a couple regions. I do okay. But I'm around and about. I'm in Rochester with Kevin.
See, Kevin, that's how a normal person introduces themselves.
Will, he's not normal. He's number one.
Yeah.
My bad.
But you next freak.
All right. Will, would you like to go next?
Yeah. I'm Will Godby. I'm a fellow Worlds contender with Justin. I was in Worlds last year. I've been in the game in and out since its inception, but not really competitive until more recently. I'm just here to have a good time, man.
Yeah, and then I'm Justin Birch. I am a 2-times Worlds contender. Never won it, unfortunately. I might be the newest head at this group. I started kind of at MHA, but I've been like super into the game. I'm the one who decided to make the world my enemy last year. But you know, besides that, I was placed top 8 this year, and my goal is for next year to not lose to Broberg for a change.
Hey, if you beat everyone else, like that's a pretty good accomplishment.
There you go.
Right. You can always be second.
All right. So, before we get into like the main topics of the cast, let's go and start and just talk a little bit about what Universus has been like the last week or two for us. Did everyone here get to go to a pre-release?
Yep, one pre-release.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I did one. We played PvE at my
Same.
Yeah, we did both. We did PvE, and then we also did a regular pre-release.
So does anyone just kind of want to talk about, and we'll start with Broberg, like what the experience has been like the last 2 weeks? What have you been kind of looking at decks? What have you been kind of doing with pre-release stuff like that?
Yeah. We had the Critical Role pre-release event this last weekend. I ended up playing kind of ultimately just one game of against the Thunder Herd with myself and 2 quite green players, 2 very fresh beginners, and then one of our other locals who's been around for maybe going on a year at this point. And we had a pretty fun match. I got to play Jester and kind of struggled with my choice of characters between Jester and a bunch of other characters that were really woefully undersupported in my pool. Half my attacks weren't spells, which is pretty awkward for Jester's abilities. I had a pretty good time navigating that game. Everyone kind of had a lot of bad cards in their decks and cards that just did not function in one way or another. And that was a bit of a struggle, I guess. But the gameplay was still pretty good. You know, I got to find the one Tinker Touch or whatever that gives your attack powerful, and also the Grog player to my right also had one of those, and so we got to slug the boss for like 15 or 20 damage worth of powerful rating, and that was pretty instrumental to taking him down. It was a pretty fun match.
Nice. Tim, did you have a similar experience, or was yours different?
So we had a Friday and a Monday, and I couldn't do Monday. That was the PvE one because I was raiding in 14. But I got to the Friday, which was a normal sealed event. It turns out pretty fortunate. I had Vax sealed on and 16 weapons. So like I got to play like a real functional deck.
Right.
Still lost to Grog anyway. But you know, we were doing 1-game matches. I made it kind of close. I was trying to figure out how to like kill him in one string, and it just wasn't adding up. But I came away feeling pretty good about sealed, and then like I heard about other people's sealed pools, and I thought back to the sealed pool I had at the like PV thing that we did at the content creator thing. I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't always work out quite so well. But yeah, other than that, just trying to come up with ideas for Denver, not getting a whole lot of like actual testing and kind of doing some gold fishing.
Sure.
May just just have to decide how serious hardcore I want to be, right? And take like a boring deck versus take a cool deck that I think is fun, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Will?
Yeah. We did two pre-releases at our shop. We did a PvE on the first day, and then we did a regular event on the second day. We split into 3 groups of 4 for our PvE day, and we did 3 rounds where each round you fought against a novice, and then an intermediate, and then
wow. Expert, whatever they call it. Advanced.
Expert or advanced. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was pretty fun. We had one pod that was all 4 grog. That was very funny. I was in a pod with 3 more or less new players. They've been playing for a little while, but they haven't really come out a whole lot, so they're still kind of green. We were the only table to not wipe on the Manticore. And then,
sure.
Yeah, the Manticore is a lot harder than he seems because he just beats the crap out of you.
Yeah, he's beginner, but beginner means that half his attacks just retaliate on you, and it's simple. Right. It also kicks the crap out of you.
All right. And then, yeah, I think the whole like getting people wiped really easily in PvE has been a common experience. I heard that the PvE I didn't get to go to had a lot of trouble against a lot of the pods. I got to do one pre-release, and we did it as PvE. And I had an absolute blast with PvE. It had kind of like solved an issue I often have with pre-release, which is that like a lot of characters feel like BS in a way that's really frustrating, because like, oh, I didn't get the cool Grog or the Toguro or someone like that, so I'm just gonna lose. But the fact is, it's like, oh, even if I didn't get the coolest character, we're doing a cooperative game. So the fact that someone else got the cool character doesn't mean the game suddenly sucks. And we had a lot of fun, and it immediately kind of like broke because we had 2 Grogs in our pod. And we realized that the way that the damage works, we can draw off every single attack because we will always have a counter off of things. So I ended the game with 14 cards in hand.
My kind of game.
Yeah. To have fun with it, we kind of like shared sealed cards that were like made it easy to go or helped people's decks out. So Clinton Thomas, one of my buds, got 5 copies of Pocket Bacon and played them all. And Pocket Bacon says commit when you draw a card plus 3 damage. So he got to the point where 1 move a turn, he was just doing plus 15 damage on the move. And that just melts the bosses. So yeah, overall I had a lot of fun. As for like what I'm building, I've tried a lot of things. I'm really like trying to figure out what is the deck. I have kind of committed myself not to messing with Ymir for a little while, just because like I think I know that deck. I wasn't going to mess with it until I knew what was on the ban list, which we'll get into in a little bit. So like I've done a lot of Tarion, who I think is potentially a problem. A lot of Nick Reagan testing. A lot of characters like that that are kind of the new fresh blood. I, though, am not going to Denver, so thankfully I get to see the results of Denver before I really commit to something.
Yeah, I guess I skipped that part of my review, I guess. I've been torturing myself of like, oh, I should make content, and then getting X% through some fraction of whatever that. But also I've been working on a Mitch deck that is now, I said I'm going to start chopping this down from being 150 cards to, I think it's like 70 now, and it's probably terrible because especially like none of the foundations do anything. You know, it's a lot of like commit -2 speed guys, but also a B-Site deck. And those two are both delightful.
Neither of those surprised me. Yeah.
Right.
I kind of want to see like do the Chris Smith thing and ship Beast Titan all year.
Oh
yeah.
Dude, I have so much respect for Chris sticking to his guns and saying, I'm going to play Keyleth no matter how mid she is.
Just put lightning blast in; it'll solve everything. Except that you're turning their foundations face down, but don't think about that too hard.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
No, Zach, no. Chris is not going to play. Zach, you can't tell me this. This is telling someone Santa Claus isn't real. I can't hear that.
What?
Apparently, Chris is abandoning or might not be playing Keyleth.
No, but Santa Claus?
Yeah, it was my dream that Chris was gonna play Keyleth all year. It was gonna be very funny.
Yeah, but like Santa Claus, he NORAD tracks him, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he's real. What are you talking about?
Sorry, hold on. You're right. That's me being stupid. I'm sorry. Hold on. My bad. Ooh, we're good.
It's age of misinformation, man. You can't.
Yeah. You
Come
know.
on, man.
Oh my god. All right. That's some great previews to hear. It's glad to hear everyone's having at least somewhat of a good time with the pre-releases and everything. But there was one big story above anything else that really mattered this last week, and that was the ban list. And before we kind of talk about the ban list itself, one thing that I kind of had everyone do was create a little list of what they felt the most likely to hit cards were, or the cards that would be reasonable to hit given the results. Because, we just had the World Championship. It was a big deal. There was a lot of potentially broken stuff. So why don't we start with Tim? Tim, you want to kind of pull up your list and talk about what you thought was likely or reasonable that was going to get hit?
Yeah. I mean, my actual take was there's percentage odds of all of these, but I decided, just to balance things, to be a little on the aggressive side. I thought they might do something about Pony because she was doing a lot of turn 2 kills at Worlds, and that is the one piece of guidance we have from them is that they hate turn 2 kills. So I thought, maybe they'll go after this. Maybe they'll decide that, having any means necessary to rotate matters too much. And then I certainly thought they were going to do something about the damage reduction package. Just especially, coming off the back of Nationals where they were, first of all, they hit Recovery Girl finally. And all right, we are having a keyboard coming in over this.
That was me bad. Hard. My bad.
Yeah,
bad.
Will, you're not allowed to type on the stream. I don't know. Just letting you know. But, just hop on your phone and you'll get it from there.
Ooh, true.
Just following after, even after Atlanta when they hit, the Ryukyu VME stuff, and they were hitting the Recovery Girl, and they were tinkering with the format to the point where they were uniquing Knott's Flask. I just felt like this was going to be a very active ban list, right? I felt like it would keep doing what they would be doing, and obviously they didn't do much of any. They did actually nothing aside from some Daisy or Lattice.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, nothing too surprising. Did I? Oh yeah, I thought they. I think a lot of people thought they would hit combined firepower. I figured they might do that, but I could see that being a sales department thing, saying, they seem to have some belief in there that if a character card is good, then therefore it's going to sell the set, which is not always correlated per se among competitive players, right? But
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, I do wonder how much of combined firepower is we need to let some of these characters cook with this once to show the value of the set. Was there anything you wanted to add on, Will? Anything that you thought was kind of expecting to get hit that you were kind of surprised didn't get touched?
I share a lot of stuff here with Tim, but I kind of want something to be done with Ymir, but there's not really much to. I don't really know what needs to be done with her. Because if you hit her recuperation time, she still can just scale out of proportion. If you limit her damage, she still can just kill you. It might take a little bit longer, but she just still murders you. It's really hard to decide what you can do with Ymir. Hitting Immortal might do it too, but she also gets out of hand with that. I personally think Chaos has a lot of really strong cards, and I kind of want something to get hit out of there, but at the moment, it's not the most pressing thing.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with both those. I thought there were going to be odds that nothing got hit, but I was really anticipating something because I really while I think Worlds was a relatively diverse format, there were definitely a few standout cards that seemed like a big deal. The one that I kind of expected the most to get hit was Shapeshifter, because it was kind of
Mhm.
doing like dual work. Like on one hand, it was the card that just broke recoup time into the sun. I would have
Right.
games
Yeah.
as a Ymir player where I would pop one foundation with best buddies, heal 2 or 3 off of shapeshifters, and go like -6, -8 damage on a move. And that just felt like I shouldn't be allowed to do that for the cost of popping a single foundation. So that was like the card,
Right.
especially because I felt like they might want recoup time to be like a build around card for the life symbol.
Mhm.
They might like that exists. So I thought Shapeshifter was going to be the one to go. Besides that, I agree with
Right.
pretty much everyone else's things. The only other card that I thought might get touched was my long shot was Walmaria's Might, mostly because like both Krista had won Nats and Krista had gotten second at Worlds. Walmaria's Might is the card that lets Krista draw so many cards to be kind of abusive. You abuse them with don't do this and all of that. And also like it's a bit of future proofing because I thought they might have an AOT3 character that gets a lot of wall counters. And if they did, like
Right.
Walmaria's Might in a character that gets a lot of wall counters immediately becomes a problem. Like it's already borderline a problem with Krista because she gets 2 for every discard. But if you have a character that's goals to get to like 10, 15 wall counters, then I see that card immediately becoming problematic. And then there's one more person in this cast who had a prediction. Well, the most absurd prediction on the list. Kevin, what was your prediction?
Yeah, I expected there to be no changes. I
Base.
think uh, part of that is I remember I've talked to folks inside the company a bit, and uh, like just the vibe check. I just expected that the vibes of Worlds of the med game we saw were pretty healthy, pretty good. Even if every individual game was not necessarily ideal, but that it was still operating within parameters, right? Like we saw like one combined firepower deck do pretty good, and then it happened to get bopped in top 32. So we
Right.
can talk about it. So it's no problem at all. I just thought, yeah, it was actually it was sorry, it was the Murko deck, and then there's also a Rodan deck and a handful of Ghidorah decks that were also playing firepower. Um, but like Ghidorah and Rodan, people would kick around the monster errata on firepower to take it away from the Percy's of the world and leave it to the Godzilla deck. Um, Characters, and for a reason, because like they're abusing it in a different way at the very least. Um, but just the null hypothesis just seemed like the right answer to me, just because there's so much changing, and we're going from a metagame that is by the data basically fine. They have been active in curating the format, but they just have done this a bunch, and I think they if I look at Worlds and say, well, did we do a good job with the ban list? I think clearly they did a pretty good job with the mimics and those adjustments. We saw a diverse metagame. A lot of people showed up with different decks, and all of those decks succeeded at different rates. Even
Right.
I think if we played over Worlds a dozen times, I don't think it would be me and Travis in the finals every time by any means. Um,
So,
I could be wrong about how good Travis's deck is. Maybe his deck wouldn't be in the finals every time, but I don't think I'd be in the finals every time. I don't know.
Yeah, especially if you shuffle the bracket.
Yeah.
Yeah, you avoided a lot of matchups that you didn't want to see.
Well, I didn't want to see
You didn't want to see Deku
Deku or
but it worked
Ghidorah
out.
before the tournament, but then after we played the matchups, it was like, okay, this is navigatable. This is good enough.
Yeah.
so what I'm hearing is you won World, so you thought it was a great format. Did I get it
You're
right?
that is a not incorrect summary. I did not hate the format, and also it's all of your fault that I won because you didn't play enough deadlock cards.
Yeah, no, I will say like Deadlock. The only the well, no, that matchup was bad for me no matter what. But in top 8, the fact that you had a Deadlock card.
You were like the deck that I chose my deck to target. Like
Yeah.
I said, I want to beat up Ymir, so I'm playing this.
I went, oh my god, I need some. When I saw you would be my top 8, I'm like, I need someone to knock him out before because I think anyone else on the bracket, I have a chance. I don't think I have a chance against that deck specifically. And even without, like, Jontai obviously was horrible, but like, even just like the deadlock on Risky Gamble, the fact that
Yeah.
like if I go into deadlock, I'm gonna lose all my best foundations, and there's like not anything I can do about it, was just crazy in that deck.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of players are slacking off on the like they won't have real deadlock. I can build this deck that has no game plan other than to build a 20 sometimes,
yep.
and that's you don't always get to do it. I remember, I was thinking about Ryan Levine's Hawks a lot going into this event, and about like there are going to be decks out there that make deadlock illegal. This is not a game plan. I don't get to do this.
I spent the entire weekend. I went into deadlock most matches at least once the entire weekend, and like the one time I didn't, I had no backup plan. That was a bad matchup for me, anyways. But like, it certainly made matters worse because he didn't find Jaw Titan for like a few turns in that game. But I just could not assemble meaningful pressure in my foundation lineup because the second I go to 11, I'm losing all my good ones. So back to kind of the topic though. Needless to say, Broberg was correct. Round of applause for Broberg. There was no hits. Congratulations. I'm curious. Obviously, I kind of know Broberg's answer from what he's been saying, although he can add on if he has more. Do we think that that's healthy? Do we think that the format without bans is okay?
It's a
I
lot
think
of
that,
definitions of health.
Right.
yeah, I think it is at the very least unclear what the toxic hellscape we're going to live in is.
Yes. Yes.
So
That
do you
is
think
true.
there's so Broberg? Do you think there's a chance we won't be in a toxic hellscape, or are you just not sure what it will
Yes.
be?
Yes, I think, and there's a perspective where if people don't know what's going to show up, then that itself is evidence that everything's good, or to a certain extent that everything is good, right? I think that the toxicity of the hellscape, the shape of the hellscape is that everyone knows what's going to happen, and they can't do anything to stop it, and they just don't they have there's an absence of fun, right? They sit down, they see the matchup, they say, oh, it's already over, or there isn't even a second deck, right? You're playing the good deck until you beat me. Lame. Um, and I'd be surprised if it's that bad. I think that the thing that I kind of expect to be happening in this format is that people are going to show up with different expectations of how things are going to go.
Yep.
Either that's, they sit down expecting to just play a coin flip game and say, well, we're both going to Nick Reagan and try to flip some coins and see who's come up better or whatever. And someone's going to win. Or they're going to sit down and say, well, yeah, we're going to like kind of play a back and forth game and they'll go for a couple turns or whatever. And they're not like defending themselves really well, so they'll just get blown up. Or they'll sit down with a toxic wall deck and very easily win in five or six turns down the line after they've set up the wall or something. And all those are not ideal, but I think there's a lot of space where you play Nick Reagan into Ghidorah or something, and it's like probably actually a pretty cool game. I don't know.
I can concur everyone has different expectations because I don't know like what you've heard from different people, but at least what I've heard like 3 different people tell me 3 different decks that are playing completely differently are gonna be like the best deck. Like
Right.
I know some of my locals were going. There's no point in playing anything that isn't Ymir. I had someone tell me Tarion. I'm actually in the camp of Tarion might actually be kind of nuts. And what was the third one? Oh, I've had people tell me Nick Reagan is just gonna show up and get true 100% every game and just mollywop people. Like I have heard
Just
different.
don't play Foundations, dude. 200% can hurt you.
True. True. Yeah.
I had a game playing Reagan against a Tarion, where he had 2
I don't need these.
foundations. He had 2 foundations all game. I'm like, what the hell do I do? I can't do.
And with the other 60 moves in your 150 card deck.
Just choose the other one when you flip it. Come on.
What about from some of our others, Tim or Will? What have you guys been hearing about or thinking about the format?
You go ahead first, Tim.
All right. Yeah. I was kind of gonna talk about this in the DR part, but this saves me time I don't get to ramble so much this time. So as a competitive player, right? Different players have different levels of risk averseness versus different things. Like some people never run a 2-check. Some people only want to run control decks that establish a 100.0% win rate 3 turns before the game's over, right? Some people, they never want to run a 7 hand size because they're worried they might get RNG'd or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind like that stuff, right? person, right? I don't mind playing decks that need to check some fives sometimes. I don't want, this or that, the other thing. The thing that does drive me nuts is I never want to lose a game at deck registration, right? I never want to like see our 2 deck lists and be like, oh yeah, I'm not winning this one, right? I don't want to play a deck that's going to get like 1090 by some matchup that has a decent chance to be in the field. So this situation with Denver drives me nuts, right? Because there's a wide range of things that are, if you're not specifically thinking about this with your deck build, you're going to be in trouble, right? Whether it's the damage reduction walls that might just not even show up for all we know, right? The CFP decks that probably will show up in some fashion, and they're going to try to one-shot you with Signs Bros. There's, just the generic early game aggro decks that are kind of shaped the same, like Nick Reagan and Ymir are kind of doing the same things, actually, when you boil it down to what stats are coming your way.
Yep.
Pony still exists, like Byakko still exists.
Yeah.
And not all of those demand like specific hate, right? It's just sort of postulating about all the different stuff that's in the meta. But some of those things, the DR, the one-shot decks, right? People could come with Deku trying to one-hit kill you.
Deku, absolutely. There's like more flashes than kind of ever. Yeah.
And so there's enough stuff that demands like specific responses and handling that me trying to like find the center of the Venn diagram that you're allowed to be in that is also a deck that I like is a royal pain on this kind of turnaround. I think given a month, I could probably find something that's not just Ymir again, but it's a bit of a struggle right now.
Yeah, I feel that.
And even like Ymir, like you talk about deck registration, just sitting down and knowing there's never a chance you win this matchup. Like if people just go, well, Hanji 2 won Worlds and is untouched, I'm going to take Hanji 2. I don't think
Ymir... Yeah, but see, I have Canister and Tornado Fist. So I can figure it out.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You do have...
Like, we played one match between Ymir and Hanji, and I did win that one. I didn't have the good ones
yet. But
I felt like I was at least like 30% into that thing, sure. Especially going first, maybe 40%.
Yeah, like structurally, like part of Ymir's job in like the metagame is that, or part of the job of a deck shaped like Ymir where you have the uncapped scaling, is to tell the people playing Weapon Clash Greater Gold that that's not enough. You need to actually play the game after this. You can't just set up this wall because people can go over the top of that wall no matter how high it is.
I will say a little off topic. I was so jealous when I saw your deck list and saw Tornado Fist. That was such a smart inclusion. Just the idea of like, oh, there's a Jaw Titan. It's just burning one card from my hand and I get to play the rest as normal. Is like a really smart choice in that. It's just off topic. I was jealous when I saw that card.
Yeah, like, I'm just glad I got to do the thing one time in the tournament at some point.
Yeah.
I did get to bring them in and I did kill Jaw Titan with it in my top 32 match. So it did do the thing.
That was that against Calvin?
That was Greg Moss.
Oh, gotcha.
It was a Reiner 1 deck.
Ah, yeah. Will, how are you feeling about the format?
Oh, I have no idea, man. Like my locals is so all over the place. I've got Dan Tickle on Ghidorah every single week.
That sounds like a Dan Tickle deck.
Yeah. I've got my local who is always on Rodan. I've got a Godzilla player. It's definitely not exactly what I'm expecting at Denver, but it kind of is at the same time, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, I fully expect to see those decks, but I don't expect them to be commonplace. But yeah, I think it's really hard to figure out what you want to take to this because, like you said, Tim, like any good Grog with like any reasonable level of DR in the deck, or even Hanji, is you're gonna have like the hardest time trying to deal with them if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with all of that. I do, before we want to move on, I want to talk about kind of ban list in more general sense. How have you guys been feeling now that we've had like 6 months or a year? I don't remember how long it's been of monthly ban lists. Every month, first Tuesday, we've had a ban list. And half the time it does nothing, half the time it does something. Do you think it's been good for the game that it's this frequent and this consistent? Or do you think like it should be maybe a little less often? Do you think maybe it should be more aggressive? What are you thinking with ban lists right now?
I think I've been impressed that with how they've been managing it. Honestly, like I think that they've had a couple very active, very proactive. I think were we already on here when we were talking about a little bit of this
Yeah.
earlier of like the unique knot flask, right? Like that's a pretty fine grained tweak to the format. They added a bunch of characters. They did all that stuff. They and other times, to be completely blunt, I played Combined Firepower Irwin in Atlanta, hoping that they would ban my deck. I'm glad they banned Risky Encounter. They certainly had to do that. I wanted to ban like 5 cards out of that deck. And they tweaked the format, and I think the metagame has been pretty good, all by and large, to my perception.
Yeah.
That's because I won Worlds. That's why I think that. I succeeded in no other reasons, but no, I think that it's been pretty good, and I think it has been. They haven't gone too far. I think clearly, like they haven't said we're going to scorch the earth. We're going to like rotate whole sets out. We're going to like throw the ship overboard.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the line they're treading, right?
By the way, thank God we didn't have Critical Role sealed worlds.
Oh Jesus! Yeah.
That is it's not a good competitive format.
Yeah. I play AOT2 sealed worlds. That'd be tight.
Yes.
I like that said.
I think the monthly lists have been pretty good. I kind of wish we got more. I don't know if they have one. I suspect they don't. I suspect month to month the conversations go different ways and different people get more of a say in what happens. Is kind of the vibe I get. But I wish there was sort of a more overall philosophy from them in terms of like what sorts of things they're looking for and what they're going to do and why. Way back when they talked about how they used a bunch of data, but they don't have that data anymore because we don't register deck lists at the UGN on locals, or we don't tell people what our characters are. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely like they're going on vibes, right? And I can appreciate that's going to be pretty hard. I do wish they had enough control over their organized play schedule to not have to like try to put their organized play events late in the months most of the time, so that we didn't have ban lists 10 days before events. In a lot of cases that's been happening a bunch, and they certainly need to avoid having a event the week of a ban, right, where the ban's not in place, but here's the event,
Right.
So hopefully that gets better throughout the year, but I think the monthly cadence has been good.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Like, I have to echo that with you, Tim, is that I do think that we should pay a little bit closer attention, if possible, to the bigger event schedule. Like, try not to keep them as far away from ban lists, like actual ban lists, as possible. But I get it that it's difficult. But no, I'm 100% with you on that one. Monthlies are fantastic. I'm really glad that we have the consistency and that they're willing to stick with that consistency, because that speaks like a lot to your newer players who are coming from like Magic and something like that, who do have these consistent ban lists.
Yeah, I think I like, first of all, consistency, fantastic. I think it is important that it is consistent. I could probably get away with every other month and feel fine with it, especially since about half the time they don't hit anything. I come from a Yu-Gi-Oh background, and Yu-Gi-Oh is very frustrating because they will say a ban list will not be before this date, but they will not say it will be on that date. It's just sometime after it will happen. And it literally, like, there are times where it's like, okay, 2 or 3 days later it happens, a week later it happens, and there are times where it's like a month and a half later it happens, and you just don't know. There have been times where a ban list came out during a regional, and it's like, okay. Yeah, I know, there's my problem, Yu-Gi-Oh. Thanks, Daniel, I appreciate it. But I think, like, the consistency of the ban list is very important. I do agree that I wish it was a little further away from the event date. And I know logistics are hard.
Right.
Because I look at, like, Denver, and let's say I hated Worlds, which I was neutral on Worlds, maybe because I made top 8 but didn't win, has me kind of neutral on the format. I But I was kind of looking like, I'm kind of exhausted with this format. I really would like to see it really shaken up. Do I want to go to Denver or not? And the fact that I don't really get to know the scope of that answer until World, or until a week and a half before, and the fact that, like, I can't order because I buy a lot of singles. Just in fact, I can't really order the deck I need, the cards I need, and guarantee it gets in time because let's say I had played the Ymir deck and Shapeshifter had gone hit. I might have to look at a different deck or at least really revolutionize like what I'm playing. Maybe I'd switch
Right.
to fire at that point.
Right.
I think just like I do like the consistency. I do even like that it's every month. I just really wish that like it was they spaced it between events a bit better. And I know the difficulties thereof, but and I get maybe it's not possible sometimes. But it's kind of been two lists in a row now. They did do a good thing at Worlds announcing it early, where we've been like, oh, we have an event in the first 2 weeks of the month. How is that going to play out? So that's just kind of where I am on it as a whole.
Yeah, I think I like that. Yeah, you brought that up that they did kind of diverge from the formula a little bit, and that they dropped like they said, yeah, it's on our normal schedule. We're dropping on Tuesday, but we're going to tell you a little bit in advance, just because like acknowledging that there are material costs to all of this. If people have to wait longer, like there's a time value of that information, um, and it's a lot more valuable when you have more time to adapt, when you have more time to get ready for an event, knowing what the actual things are, and you get it really sucks getting frozen out from making plans. And yeah, I guess it's been kind of certainly kind of part of the calculus of what decks I'm building and how hard I try to test for Denver is like, yeah, we just don't know what's even going to be up for contention, like what the format, what the contours of the format are going to look like, what the pillars of the metagame might be, because all the pillars are up to potentially get banned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, 100%. I do think this is probably a good time to move on to our next topic. This is one that Tim really wanted to talk about. And Tim's kind of talked about this in videos before.
I didn't even put that on the initial list. Somebody else
Did you
brought it
not
up.
put it on the initial list? I
Yeah,
could have
no,
sworn it
no.
was you. But
So just following.
let's talk about something that's kind of increased in popularity as like a design space for Universus and UVS games. Where are we feeling about damage reduction as it is in the game currently? And I'll let kind of just anyone start that conversation.
So the greater goal is kind of cracked. Let's
Yeah,
start there. That's a good starting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is.
Flip -2 damage. Like once upon a time, you want some real boomer stuff. There's a cutting edge. It was truly deplorable power level. Actually, it says
Yeah.
response before you get hit. Take 2 less damage for every foundation you sacrifice. So you just don't die. You just emergency button. I'll sack my stage and take 16 less damage. And you got any more kills? No. Max my turn. Let's see if I can play off of 2 foundations. That's a problem. Greater goal both ways. Is you can just convert foundations, raw resources. Just I think of it kind of like I thought of an MMA analogy. This is just wrestling, right? I can just lay and prey on top of someone. If I can reduce all the damage of their attacks, just hold them down, pin them to the floor. You know, literally, this is what I did to Travis. I just held him on the floor and said, "You just bear hugged him and said you can't get up." And eventually, he got tired and they called the match for me in game 1 of World. I think that's a exact analogy of what I did of how that game went. Is I said bear hug, no damage, no action. I can't hit any offense either, but one of us is gonna fall asleep.
Well,
And they did.
and I kind of saw that firsthand when I played against you in top 8 was like when you got the jaw titan out, my main DR or damage pump is gone. And it's like and against 90% of decks, that's not a big deal because you just waste an attack on the jaw titan and then it doesn't have 3 HP anymore, you go about your business. But when I played against you specifically, you were able to go to a position where it was like you commit your face for -3, you pop 2 to ready. One of them's an I'm with you -2. Oh, you need a little more. Let's flip one greater goal. You would like -7 damage my move, and I'm like,
Yeah.
none of my attacks hit you for anything. I don't know
Yeah.
what to do.
And like notably, that's repeatable, right?
Yeah.
Like people joke about how I hate every form of DR. I primarily hate repeatable, like spammable on every attack DR, right? Especially when it reaches a certain level.
So, can I ask in that regard, what do you feel about like? So you're fine with like invincible body and cards like that?
Yeah, on net, right? Like I think invisible. If we're gonna have cards like Cape of No Return and
Sure.
various forms of like foundations that blow up to take attacks away. I think Invisible Body's a fine piece of that puzzle. First Nance, it's working out okay, right? But what I don't like is when I was talking about like the Venn diagram earlier, and the two circles that are always there is you always need to be able to deal with whatever the silliest aggro deck in the formats are, right? Or the one or two decks that you think are probably the best, like I'm just going to be a monkey and play attacks and try to kill you types of decks. And you always need to deal with whatever decks are just trying to build to 1,000,000 and block everything, right? Yep. There's always going to be decks in those spaces. Those are always going to be two circles that you're going to need. That's just part of the fundamental mechanics of the game. And then there's a third circle that's kind of there, but not always a big deal, which is how much damage does your deck actually need to do unblocked to win games? And a lot of the time that ranges between 30 and 40 in like a lot of formats in the past. We go all the way back to like 2011 era. It was very notably 28 exactly and not 27.
That wasn't any for anyone else. That was just me.
Yeah, it's just, and when that bar and that is a constraint of some kind, right? A lot of Eraserhead decks notably had trouble even counting to 35 if they needed to, right? And so Kevin was able to show up with a Prone to Dry Eyes. We're going to play a couple extra pieces. We're going to solve this problem and actually be able to kill people with Eraserhead. And if that bar was not 35, but it was 50, right? Maybe that cool deck doesn't work anymore, right? And when it goes from 50 to 60 to 70 to 80, right? At some point, as you raise that bar, you're taking decks away from consideration if people want to make sure they can win those matchups, right? Assuming they're not happy to just scoop to them.
Yeah.
And so I get frustrated when, the bar is up at, 60 or higher or whatever, and I have to limit the decks I'm considering to decks that can be this tall to ride. Mm-hmm. Being that tall is always good, even if you don't have to be, right? It's always good to do more damage. The more damage you're dealing per attack, the less that people need to block. But it's the difference between, can I fit the cool, adorable telepath tricks in my deck, or do I have to just play more damage, right? Or do I have to, can I play this character that doesn't have damage on their face, or do I have to swap them out for someone that does, or that kind of thing?
Right.
Yeah. I definitely agree with a lot of the issues of the whole unprinted damage thing. And I think it's important when we look at a lot of characters like HP. There's a lot of characters that the HP on their card is a lie if they have any amount of DR on face. Hanji is not a 21 health, is never a 21 health character. If you know you can consistently do 21 health on turn 2, that does not matter in the Hanji matchup. Hanji is a 24 health character, bare minimum. And I'm looking at the most extreme version of this right now is Grog, right? Grog is -2 damage on every unblocked move. If your moves are coming in for average 6, let's say you're a pony deck who doesn't have a ton of big damage pumps. If your moves are coming in for an average 6, they're now coming in for an average 4. You're going from 6 moves to kill them to 8 moves to kill them. That's a big jump in the amount of damage to actually kill someone.
Right.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, right, if it's just, quote unquote just, right, if it's just -2 to everything,
sure,
right, there are amounts of this that aren't that much of a problem, right? If it's the difference between instead of dealing 31, I need to do de facto 40 something, we can figure that out in deck building,
yeah.
right? I just think when it gets to the point where decks are quote unquote easily, or at least at not that big of a cost, or just at a certain point in the game, they're able to consistently -5, -6, -7 damage moves.
It's a critical mass.
That gets to be too much, right?
Yeah. Critical mass is rough.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a critical mass thing. I think there was way back in the day, like Goro, KOF block era, there were decks that were just literally it was the critical mass of I'm going to play every card that says -2 damage on them. I'm going to play a 5-hand size character. I'm going to have a big butt, and I'm just going to play my hand out every turn and say, hey, what are you going to do about it? You attack me, I'm going to get value out of all of my -2s. I'm going to get 8 extra health this game. You're going to attack me however hard you attack me. You're probably not going to kill me because I'm a 5-hand size, and back then people didn't goldfish 50 on turn 2 or ever. It just didn't happen. Yeah. And then then they get to ready all their -2s. They can build some more -2s. They say, well, now next turn I'm going to get 12 more health and then 16 more health, and you're getting locked out of here at some point. It's very much a critical mass thing, and I think another way that I think of it is that if we talk about so a big kind of very big picture idea is that in general in UFS you want your attacks to be about equally sized until your opponent is unable to block. At which point you just want your attacks to be as big as it can be, right? A lot of times you'll poke and play footsies, then play a powerful 5 move at the end and try to take their head all the way off. But until that point, you want your attacks to be about equally sized. And if we say, well, how many attacks does it take to kill Grog? If they're all 8 damage, they shrink to 6. Then it takes 6 attacks. And that's kind of a lot of attacks to land. But he's a 5-hander, so there's this push and pull. If you have your attacks be like 12 damage, now it only takes, well, it still takes 4 hits. But you throw an extra +1 on one of those, now it takes 3 hits to kill him. If you can start at 12. And this is a pretty discombobulated thought. I think of Godzilla, who gets to play Walk the Dog as a 4 difficulty 9 damage move.
Yeah,
and it's just like it's like a part of the texture of the format. I do not like fighting Godzilla with my Hanji deck. You can get out of the matchup. Clearly, I've actually played it the first 2 rounds of Worlds more or less for Godzilla matchups. I managed to sneak out of those by shooting him in the face. Basically, I got to soak some attacks, but if I try to DR a Walk the Dog to 0, it's extremely expensive. If Grog tries to face tank a Godzilla, he's going to lose. Like, that is not going to be a successful plan against Godzilla.
Oh, sure.
Right, yeah.
And I think that ultimately a lot of it's just kind of power creep and a reflection of, like, I think I see in Grog a reflection of maybe we messed up with Electric Moth. Maybe this Electric Moth pony deck is a little bit too good. And so we're going to make a character who says, I take half damage from Electric Moth without doing anything.
Yeah.
And force the ponies to say, well, instead of being all in Electric Moth Sphere / turn 2, like cards that are equally good on turn 2 or turn 6, that they need to have some cards that are bad on turn 2 so they can be good on turn 6. They can Armor the Wolf Grog out of the game after you take momentum from pokes. And I think that's kind of the conversation I see damage reduction existing in.
I'm glad you mentioned the power creep problem, because I think also we're in this weird situation where and maybe I'm just seeing it, I'm seeing this like arms race going on where like the hate and the power, the boosts are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like Godzilla's a great example of this. Godzilla is just +3 damage for playing the game. Like, especially because we print City Rampage, where now 5 divs feel like less of a deck build cost.
Along with his 3 div foundation, yeah.
Along with his 3 div foundation.
One of these episodes, we gotta just do a deep dive on Godzilla, because I just talk about that for like an hour.
think Godzilla is such an interesting. The set,
He's so cool.
Not just the character. I think the character's intriguing, but the set's really interesting, and what it did.
We have multiple characters that get +3 damage for playing the game, and nobody runs them.
What's another one you're thinking of?
Endeavor.
Wolfwood, Dobby.
Wolfwood's a good example. Keyword gated, but a good example. And then I will.
Only the symbol's best keywords, yeah.
But it's fine. I because I'm a bad Godzilla player, I know why Godzilla is a problem. But what I was saying with the arms race, because it's not just
there are multiple X and 3 at Nationals Godzilla players on this podcast right now. I'm just saying.
But I think because like damage got so big, because like Godzilla's coming around swinging 10 damage moves so easily, 9 damage moves so easily. It's like, well, now characters that we do want characters that are doing some degree of DR. We want DR to feel like it matters. We have to print more to compensate that.
Listen, I'm already moving the goalposts here, right? I'm out here saying like -2 on everything's like kind of okay. I was so mad when they made Reptile. Who gives -3 to everything for the crime of not playing mid attacks. And the damage profile at the time was just like, man, what do I need? I can't play this, I can't play this, I can't play this because I'm never going to beat a Reptile, and I don't want to lose to some dumb idiot rolling his face on the play match, just giving everything -3 damage. And now I'm like, Grog, all right, we have the numbers to deal with Grog with most things.
Did Reptile give -3 damage?
It was like -1 now, -2 later, right?
Yeah, it's like -1 is -2 the next.
All right, hold on. Let me pull this up for those in chat who don't.
He wasn't
know the
good.
card.
He was good enough to be around.
Yeah, he was like low B, high C tier.
He made a lot of top cuts, and the funny thing is, he made like 7 different top cuts and lost in the first round every single time.
Because he's just one of
Sometimes
those.
it's like
I think
third
I think
too.
one person won one game with him and won one match.
He's just
in top
that
cuts
character.
with him.
Like, if you don't have an answer to him, your life's hell, right? Like, if you don't have a
I
way to
think
overcome
I
it.
think that he's a little bit over compressed, and he's not completely one dimensional like that. I think there's some cool gameplay in Godzilla, but
Yeah.
Yes.
But because where I've really seen it, like, and I don't want to move the topic too much, but you're also seeing a lot in speed right now, where like +3, -3 speed characters almost feel like the new +2, -2. Like, how many characters do we have now? Like, Rodon's doing +3, -3 consistently. Tarian can very easily set up a board where he's doing anywhere from +3, -3 to +4, -4.
Just gotta get one suited up into play, man.
One suited up changes that deck so much. Now, obviously, that's additional support, but
Sure.
I think everything, like, stats are just getting bigger, and I think you're seeing that with damage reduction. You're seeing that with damage boosting. You're seeing that with everything.
Yeah, we've seen speed arms races before. It never, funnily enough, like in the old FFG days, like before Red Horizon, their speed hate almost didn't exist. It's very interesting. Go back and look at those cards. Like the speed resets and speed reduction just wasn't a thing. And then we printed a girl like any other. And
Yeah,
Vespera and everything got weird from there because now we needed to make things fast enough to compete with those cards. And yeah, there's always been this, not always, but there's for a very long time been that kind of push and pull on speed stats. Damage stats, usually, historically, before now, right? If decks were doing more than a little bit of damage reduction, right, during that King of Maxima and Man Behind the Mask died for the crimes of that King of Fighters format that Kevin was talking about, for instance. Gil got a ban for doing this kind of stuff, right? The decks shaped like this very typically get banned, which is part of the reason I'm surprised they let it stick around here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
different team, obviously, now, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's a really interesting. I never thought about how like the invention of speed hate happened,
yeah,
and that wasn't like you go back and play like bad old Sabretooth days, and yeah, like they had no idea what they were doing, and they were like the game was dominated by completely insane nonsense, and these silver bullets that shot the completely insane nonsense. It's even more insane nonsense. We talked about anti-discarded some thread the other day. And
yeah.
Boy, you think this is bad. But where was I going with this? Yeah, did I really Man Behind the Mask someone else? Is this like I really did, didn't I? Like the I became the Titan narrative. Like I don't know if y'all know this, from the depths of YouTube, you can still find my first nationals tournament I ever went to. Actually, was in I think 2013 or so, where I lost to Garrett Brett because he played like 3x of a Desperation plus or minus 1 damage foundation into my deck that was all printed 3 damage attacks.
Yeah. That was 2012. I remember because 2013 was the year he had to come to my apartment and we finished. Finished Worlds at a local game store in Massachusetts.
I got second place with a very silly deck at my first try at Nationals, so I did not come close for a while. But I feel like I was going somewhere about the texture of the format and how much damage attacks were dealing, and I think I just completely lost it. I think maybe I was kind of thinking
once
of
upon a time we banned Truong for
for
being a 7-hander that put 2 damage on things. That was too much.
Truong is a reflection of a prototypical Cave of No Return effect. Actually, it was like an instant body. It says delete this attack, and he gives your opponent a damage bonus for their trouble, which supposedly balances him. And it has some interesting characteristics, but I think where I was thinking a little bit was that back in the KOF days, I feel like we had a lot more access to to reusable card economy, to tutors, and to attacking not on your own turn. I think are definite, very real parts of the format, where it was a lot harder to imagine dealing someone's entire life total in one attack, but instead you got to warp the game in various other ways that they've moved away from. The card draw these days, it's hard to draw a card without flipping your foundation. Even with Button Collector, it flips itself sometimes.
Science Bros doesn't.
True.
Dude,
The most
Science,
exciting part of that card.
that's a card we're gonna have to talk about at some point. Science Bros is a card I think is cracked into design space. Um, I do think there is a card in the DR world that scares me more than any other, and that's recuperation time. Because I look at a lot of DR cards and I go, this deck can't live truly forever. Um, like, if I'm still hitting you for 2 damage and you're a 21 health character, 11 moves will eventually kill you. If you know,
Yeah.
I might mill before I get to 11 moves connecting. I might not, but there is like, it is not a deck that can really last forever. The thing that was crazy when I played so many of my matches, and I don't know if Tim, you had a similar example or instance of this, was I would get to board states with recoup time where it's not only can I DR basically every move as much as it's needed, but I'm regaining so much health through the process that any progress you might have made on the previous turn is gone. The best example of this was probably against the two examples. Top 16, I'm against Rodon. And I get like 3 recoups on field. And the one weakness of George's list we even talked about later was like it did not have much damage pump. Combined firepower was kind of its only damage pump. Rodan, that's fine, Daniel. I So I just go, I'm just going to take the first hit, so I'm down to like 18, 17, and I'm going to gain all the health back, and I'm going to do it again. Your one way to stop me is Ice Sword, so I'm just going to say my Vast Strengths for your Ice Swords, and you can never kill me, and I milled a Rodon in 60 minutes in game 1, doing next to no aggression. And then game 2...
I don't have that experience because I wasn't running recuperation time in a million years.
You were running Oh, that's right. You were.
No, I was looking at Tim's list earlier. He wasn't running it at all.
And then game 2, I just play like pure defense. I go, I have the recoups. You're not killing me. Against Brett, it was even worse. Brett was playing Attack Titan, the +4 damage one on transformation. And I got to a board state, the one that's removed 2 for +4 damage. I got to a board state.
The Aaron, yeah.
Where I was anywhere from -5 to -20 on moves. Because I got like 3 recoups out and 3 or 4 shapeshifters. And I was like, I'll pop 1 foundation and I'll just make as many checks as I need to make all your moves 0 or 1. Either you have to do 21 damage to kill me, or is Ymir 23? Should 21 or 23?
It's 23.
23? You either have to do
Yeah.
23 to me in 1 move, or the game you never kill me. And part of this is because he made Deadlock not real. Like he did not have Deadlock threats, so I just could do that. But I just looked at it and went, there is not a world where you can go, he has a lot of DR, but I can maybe chip him down. It was just like you will never win at this stage. You should just concede right now, because unless you mill me out, the game's not ending in your favor. I know I went on a little tangent there. But...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's certainly like people. I hate when people say like every card they don't like is broken. I get frustrated by that. But I think in the real way, like, you're describing a broken game state, right? A game state where the normal rules of, we're gonna play back and forth, we're gonna whatever, like attacking and blocking are gonna matter. Those are broken down, right? Now the game is about recuperation time and this engine you've assembled, and that's going to protect your life total without any particular action on your part, and that the game will eventually be decided by someone getting decked, unless something changes. And I think that it is not good for the games for the game to break, or for things to break down like that.
Yeah.
But it's not terrible, and as long as you can, I'd say just like, oh, they screwed up, they should have built their deck better, but like they should have built their deck better. Like,
yeah. I think it is kind of terrible, but there's a limit of. At some point, you have to build your deck better, right? If someone builds a deck that can't deal 20 damage to a brick wall, or to the side of a barn, or whatever analogy you want to use, then you need to build your deck better. If your deck throws 60 unblocked damage in a turn and deals 0, that's probably that's a little dubious, right? If that's happening with,
Sure.
maybe you're supposed to play better deadlock cards or whatever.
Yeah, if you're either you're supposed to win earlier and not let it get to that stage, or you're supposed to play cards that let you play in that stage of the game, that
Sure.
you swim in that deep water.
Yeah, but normally, right, under when it's not a damage reduction wall, like playing at that stage in the main game is usually about how you're going to land your moves to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Dealing more damage per move when you actually do land them also helps.
Mm-hmm.
But if you figured out how to present 60, right, that should be pretty good. And I don't know if that's what this deck was doing, right? Just throwing numbers out there. But yeah, I'm definitely one where, like I talked about as a competitor, as a player, right? The thing that I like about UVS most is that core conceit, is the like attacking and blocking and balancing those decisions back and forth and all of that. And so as a player, I don't like anything that's trying to take that out of the game, right? I don't like damage reduction walls. I don't like mono throw decks. I don't like decks that wind up and play 15 moves to make blocking just a nothing mechanic, right? I don't like decks that make blocking so easy that if someone was somehow drawing infinite cards and giving -10 speed to everything, I'd be mad at those decks too, right?
Rodan, yeah.
yeah. Sometimes Rodan gets to that state, yeah. So like, it's very weird because I'm usually not offended by decks that are like staying within those bounds, right? Like, I don't know if anything's going to make me mad about Tarian. I have no problems with Krista. I don't have too many problems with Ghidorah. Sometimes he stacks up a bunch of damage reduction. That's annoying. Never really had that much of a problem with Momo, right? Never had too much of a problem with Overhaul, right? I've never like minded decks that other people have gotten really mad about because they're still like playing that normal-ish shaped game. But if a deck's locking you in prison by giving every attack -9 damage instead of locking you in prison by building a lot and blocking everything, then I get mad. If you're locked in prison because they built a lot and blocked everything, you should have built your deck better.
I like that you mentioned Krista, because that's what I was going to ask on, is like, where do you stand on the hand trap DR cards? And in the case of like, is it okay if it's usable once? Like a normal jury, most players can only use once. A normal runaway players can only use once, and it goes in the discard.
Yeah. I don't like seeing those like looped endless. If you're looping that, if you're playing 3 runaways in a turn, you've de facto given like minus however much damage to every move. But clearly we're in a power level where hand traps are going to exist. They've I've been playing this game for 18 years. I've seen a lot of formats, right?
Sure.
I just want the game to like mostly resemble the game that I like,
right?
Or at least be able to find a deck I can play that's doing that, right?
Sure.
It will in here.
Before we move on, does anyone have any other thoughts they want to talk on damage reduction? Where it kind of is, where it might go? I actually do want to ask one more question, and because we've seen a few of these types before I move on. Do you think, because you said you like when the central conceit is blocking, how are you feeling about the design ethos of archetypes that are built around DR, archetypes that are built around like doing the one punch and stuff, playing normal attacks? Do you feel like designing in these sort of like really alternate ways of play as a whole are bad? Is it just DR you have a problem with? Where do you kind of stand?
I recognize, right, that I like what I like, and that's not what everybody else likes.
Of course.
Right? I don't like one-hit KO decks, right? I don't like spam DR decks. Some people like to completely violate the basic fundamentals of the game, but that's not the game that I signed up to play. And I think, the like soapbox a little bit about locals and getting more players into the game. That's not the game that your new players are learning when they play their challenger decks against each other most of the time. Right. So I have some, our locals is very often playing very competitive decks, and I always feel bad when one of our newer players had to play against Recovery Girl. I'm just like, yeah, what a great experience they're about to have.
Hey, I always said I was always a Recovery Girl maximalist. She plays more UNF. She lets you play more UFS than anybody. You hit her fit for 50 to the face, and she takes it, right? She needs more foundations. That's you build more foundations, because who cares if you block? You're not going to take no damage anyway.
Broberg, saying that Recovery Girl lets you play the game more is like saying your little brother's playing the game when you unplug the Tails controller. Like, I guess he is technically hitting buttons.
What?
It's
No,
not
it's like
doing
if you
anything.
reset the game back to level 1 and said, let's play again.
Did you get to win the
That
game
second
first?
rescue is just you restart the
No.
game.
Hold on.
You hit the reset button right before he gets to the flag.
Yeah, Broberg, I want you to think about real quick. You're playing a game where every time right before you hit the flag at the end of the level, someone resets the level on you.
Bro, I don't know. I don't think you like. I have consumed a lot of Northern Lion tabletop of Trick Shot Simulator VODs in this last couple of weeks. Listen, there's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, man. It's just more rainbow.
Kevin,
Why
Broberg,
do you want to stop playing?
Kevin, you would think Sisyphus is getting an enjoyable task because he gets to roll that ball up the hill.
Justin. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. It is imperative. You must imagine Sisyphus happy. I'm not asking. You must do it.
Oh, man.
I think we might have to end it on that one.
I think we have to. Yeah.
That's a good place.
We have more topics we can touch. We'll touch those later.
YouTube title, What If Sisyphus Was Happy? Question.
Oh, man. Well, I do think we should end it there. We are past an hour at this point, and for a band test stream, I think things went fairly well. Does anyone want to plug stuff before we sort of sign off? You guys got channels?
Yeah, I put out a video this morning, top 20 prospects, in which I try to say nice things about characters that I've never topped before and try not to be a super doomer about the damage reduction for 40 minutes talking about cool stuff that might be interesting. So, what new Critical Role characters I think might have a chance to be good, that kind of stuff.
It was a fun video. I liked it.
Yeah, me too. +1. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel, Broberg Universus. I'll upload a video to it.
Sometimes.
Yeah, eventually.
Beast Titan profile next. Let's see it.
Will, do you have something you'd like to plug?
Yeah, it's this Twitch channel. It's called Cast.
Oh,
everyone on it's really cool. Yeah, one guy likes to yap a lot and make it seem like he's interviewing everyone, but otherwise, fantastic.
Yeah, that guy is so pretentious and full of himself. But
I think it's like his gimmick or something.
Yeah, yeah. Overall, I think this went really well. We will be back next week at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And yeah, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Sorry, Mr. Final Max. Yep, you showed up at the very end of the show.
That's fine. Justin will surely be posting a nicely edited, clipped out the first 10 minutes on YouTube soon, TM, when he figures out how to do that.
Yeah, as soon as
there might be a VOD.
I have to learn what an editing software is, and then I'll be sure to do that. All right, y'all. Thank you for coming out. Everyone, have a good evening. Yeah. See you all later.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.